The research station floated quietly in the darkness of space. It was a small place, built for science and peace. 43 beings from different species lived and worked there, studying a dying star that burned red and orange in the distance. The station belonged to the Galactic Concord, an alliance of 12 spacefaring species who had agreed to share knowledge and keep peace among the stars. Stood at her workstation, looking at data on her screen. She was a human scientist who studied alien life forms. Her job was to understand how different species evolved on different worlds. It was quiet work, and she liked it that way. The station was calm, the crew was friendly, and the universe seemed like a peaceful place. There were only 5 humans on the station. Humanity was new to the galactic community. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 20 years ago. Most alien species saw humans as primitive but harmless. They tolerated them the way adults tolerate curious children. Dew walked into the science lab carrying a toolbox. He was the station's maintenance chief, a quiet man with strong hands and a practical mind. He nodded at and went to fix a broken air filter in the corner. "The researchers broke another machine," he said simply. Smiled. "They are scientists, not engineers." "They are clumsy," Dew replied, but there was no anger in his voice. He liked They were tall, thin beings with blue skin and large eyes. They were nervous by nature, always worried about something, but they were kind. The station's lead researcher was unnamed. He was brilliant but afraid of almost everything. He worried about the dying star. He worried about equipment failures. He worried about running out of food, even though supplies arrived every month. At that moment, rushed into the lab. His blue skin had turned pale, and his large eyes were wider than usual. "Something is wrong," he said. His voice was shaking. Turned from her screen. "What happened?" "Ships, many ships. They just appeared from hyperspace." Dew put down his tools. "What kind of ships?" "Unknown, no, wait." Checked his tablet with trembling hands. "The computer has identified them. Dominion." The room went silent. Even who did not know much about galactic politics knew that name. The Dominion was a brutal empire that conquered weaker species and made them slaves. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They simply took what they wanted. "How many ships?" Dew asked. Looked like he might collapse. 87. They hurried to the main control room. The other crew members were already there, gathered around the large. The station's diplomatic liaison ambassador stood at the front. She was a four-armed being covered in soft gray fur. Her species hated conflict. They had no word for war in their language. On the screen, they could see the fleet. 87 warships, dark and angular, with weapons bristling from every surface. They surrounded the station like predators circling wounded prey. A transmission came through. A face appeared on screen. It was a commander, his gray skin covered in ritual scars, his eyes cold and empty. "I am Warlord of the Dominion," he announced. "You are now property of the Dominion. Surrender your station and prepare to be processed. You have 1 hour. If you resist, you will die." The screen went dark. Ambassador began to shake. "We cannot fight them. We have no weapons. We have no military ships. We are just scientists." Nodded rapidly. "She is right. We must surrender. Perhaps they will show mercy." "The do not show mercy," said a deep voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned. It was Guy, a human cargo handler. He was a big man with rough hands and a face. He had worked on cargo ships for 15 years before taking this quiet job. "I have seen what they do to their slaves," he continued. "Death is better." Sfer stood on end. "Then what do? We cannot fight, we cannot run. What option is there?" Stepped forward. "We send a distress signal, we call for help." "From who?" asked desperately. "The nearest conquered fleet is 3 days away. We have 1 hour." "Then we call," everyone said. "Every frequency, every channel, someone might be close enough to help." Dew was already moving to the communications console. I will send the signal myself, all frequencies, including the human emergency channel. Watched him work. What good will that do? Humans have only 3 ships in this sector, 3 small ships against 87 warships. Dude did not answer. He simply typed the message and sent it into the void. SOS, VLITH Research Station under attack, KETH Dominion Fleet, 87 hostile SHIPS, 43 CIVILINS, request immediate assistance. The message flew through space at the speed of light, bouncing off relay stations, reaching every ship and every outpost within range. The crew waited. The minutes passed slowly. 43 beings watched the clock and watched the fleet and wondered if anyone would answer. Ambassador prayed to gods she had not believed in for decades, calculated their odds of survival, and wished he had not. The other crew members held each other's hands and said goodbye to their families in their minds. Du stood by the window looking at the enemy ships. His face showed nothing, but his hands were clenched into fists. Joined him, do you think anyone will come? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, humans will come. Even if it is hopeless. Du looked at her, especially if it is hopeless, that is when we come. Far away in the darkness of space, the SOS reached a small patrol vessel called the Steadfast. Alarms rang through the bridge. The captain, a woman named Shin Bai, read the message twice. Her face hardened. She pressed a button on her command chair. All hands battle stations. Navigation plot a course to the station. Communications contact Admiral Park. Tell him we have a situation. Her first officer looked at her with concern. Captain, the message says 87 enemy ships. We cannot fight that alone. Bai stood from her chair. We will not fight alone. Wake them all up. Wake up everyone. The small ship turned and began to move. Behind it, across human space, other ships received the message. Other captains read it. Other crews prepared for battle. Someone had called for help. The humans were coming. Captain Shin Bai stood on the bridge of the Steadfast, watching her crew work with quiet efficiency. They had received the distress signal 12 minutes ago. In that time, she had contacted every human ship in the sector and sent an urgent message to Admiral Park at Sector Command. Now she waited for his response. The Steadfast was a patrol vessel, small and fast but not built for heavy combat. It had 4 plasma cannons and light shields. Against a single enemy ship, it could hold its own. Against 87 warships, it would last perhaps 30 seconds. Her first officer, a young man named Sungjin, approached her chair. Captain, Admiral Park is responding on the secure channel. On screen. The face of Admiral Park appeared. He was an older man with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. Those eyes had seen many things. He had fought in Earth's unification wars before humanity reached the stars. He had helped build the Terran Defense Force from nothing. He was not a man who made decisions lightly. Captain Shin, he said, I have read your report. 87 warships holding a civilian research station. 43 hostages, including 5 humans. Yes, Admiral. The commander has given them 1 hour to surrender. That was 14 minutes ago. Was quiet for a moment. How many ships do we have in range? 17, including the Steadfast. The Iron Mountain is the largest. The rest are patrol vessels and light cruisers. 17 ships. The Admiral's voice was flat. Against 87. Sungjin shifted uncomfortably. Everyone on the bridge knew the math. It was bad math. The kind of math that got people killed. But did not hesitate long. Order all ships to form up at these coordinates. We jump together. Full combat readiness. Bai felt something warm in her chest. Pride, perhaps. Or maybe just relief that she served under a man like this. Admiral, another voice cut in. It was Colonel from the Tactical Division, speaking from another ship. With respect, sir, this is not a winnable engagement. The Galactic Concord has protocols for hostage situations. We should wait for reinforcements and attempt negotiation. The nearest Concord fleet is 3 days away, replied calmly. The deadline expires in 46 minutes. By the time reinforcements arrive, those 43 people will be dead or worse. Sir, we could lose all 17 ships. That is a significant portion of our sector defense. I am aware of the risks, Colonel. Then why are we doing this? Looked directly into the camera. His eyes were hard as stone. Because someone called for help, that is all the reason we need. The channel fell silent. No one argued further. Aboard the Iron Mountain, the largest human carrier in the sector, Lieutenant Bay ran calculations at her tactical station. She was young, only 26, but she was the best tactical officer in the fleet. Numbers made sense to her. Patterns made sense. War was just math with blood. She finished her calculations and brought them to the captain of the Iron Mountain. Sir, I have completed the combat projections. Go ahead, Lieutenant. 17 human ships against 87 vessels. Even with our superior maneuverability and targeting systems, we are looking at a 63% casualty rate. We will likely lose 11 ships, possibly more. The captain nodded slowly, and if we do nothing, 43 civilians will be enslaved or killed, including 5 humans. Then we go. Return to her station. She looked at her screens, at the numbers that told her how many of her friends might die today. Then she began planning how to make the enemy pay for every single one of them. Back on the station, time was running out. Ambassador paced the control room, her 4 arms wrapped around herself. There must be something we can do, some way to negotiate, some way to delay them. Shook his head. The do not negotiate they take, that is all they understand. Then we hide. We barricade ourselves in the intersections. Perhaps they will not find us all. They have life scanners. They will find everyone within minutes. Made a sound like a sob. Then it is over. We are already dead. Watched this exchange in silence. She understood their fear. She felt it too, like cold water in her stomach. But she also felt something else. Something that her alien colleagues did not seem to share. She felt angry. These had come to their peaceful station. They had threatened innocent scientists with slavery and death. They had given them an impossible choice and expected them to simply accept it. No, was not ready to accept it. She walked to where Du stood with the other humans. Guy was there, along with 2 others, a young engineer named O Min and a doctor named Sora. 5 humans among 43 aliens. We need to prepare, said quietly. Du nodded. I have been thinking the same thing. Prepare for what? Sora asked. She was a small woman with gentle hands trained to heal, not to fight. For when they board the station, Du replied. If help does not come in time, they will breach our airlocks and send soldiers inside. We need to slow them down. Guy cracked his knuckles. With what? We have no weapons. This is a research station. Du looked around the room. His eyes moved over equipment, tools, furniture. Everything is a weapon if you use it right. Metal pipes, chemical agents from the labs, heavy objects. We find choke points in the corridors and make them pay for every meter. Min, the young engineer, swallowed hard. Will that actually stop them? No, Du admitted, but it might buy time, and time is all we can give right now. On the fleet waited in silence. Their ships hung in space like dark birds of prey, patient and terrible. The clock showed 31 minutes remaining. In human space, 17 ships moved into formation. Their engines glowed blue against the blackness. Captains gave final orders. Crews checked their weapons. Marines loaded into drop pods, ready to storm enemy vessels or rescue civilians. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Iron Mountain. He looked at the navigation display showing the distance to the station. 40 minutes at maximum speed. The deadline would expire in 31. They would be 9 minutes late. 9 minutes was a long time. Many people could die in 9 minutes. But they would come anyway, because that was what humans did. All ships, announced over the fleet channel. This is Admiral Park. In a few minutes, we will enter hyperspace and travel to the research station. We will face an enemy that outnumbers us 5-1. Many of us will not return. He paused. On 17 ships, hundreds of humans listened. But there are 43 people on that station who sent out a call for help. They are scared. They are alone. They believe that no one is coming to save them. We are going to prove them wrong. Some species in this galaxy think humans are weak. They think we are primitive. They think we do not belong among the stars. Today, we show them what humans really are. Today, we show them why they should never threaten our people. All ships engage hyperspace drives. We jump in 3 minutes. Across the fleet, engines powered up. Hyperspace windows began to form, swirling portals of light against the darkness. On the station, the hour was almost over. Warlord's face appeared on the again. His cold eyes swept over the frightened crew. "Your time is up," he announced. "What is your answer? Will you surrender or will you die?" Ambassador stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Please, we need more time. We are just scientists. We have no weapons. We are no threat to you." Smiled, it was not a kind smile. "More time? Very well. I will give you exactly 5 more minutes. Then my soldiers will board your station. Anyone who resists will be killed. Anyone who does not resist will become property of the Dominion. Choose wisely." The screen went dark. Du picked up a metal pipe from the floor. He tested its weight in his hands. Then he looked at his fellow humans. 5 minutes, he said. "Let us get ready." They spread out through the station. They built barricades. They prepared traps. They found anything that could be used as a weapon and made themselves ready for the fight of their lives. And far away, getting closer with every second, 17 human ships flew through hyperspace toward them. The 5 minutes passed too quickly. Du stood behind a barricade made of heavy equipment and metal shelves. Beside him, Guy held a piece of sharp metal he had broken off a damaged machine. Behind them, Min gripped a fire extinguisher like a club. The alien crew members had gathered in the central control room with So-Ra to protect them. It was the most defensible position in the station. If the humans could slow down the soldiers, maybe everyone would survive long enough for help to arrive. If help was coming at all. The sound of cutting tools echoed through the corridors. They were breaching the outer airlock. In minutes, they would be inside. Pressed herself against the wall near the first barricade. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She was a scientist. She studied alien life forms. She was not trained to fight. But neither were any of them. They were doing this anyway. "Here they come," Du said quietly. The airlock door burst open. Soldiers poured through, tall and gray-skinned, wearing black armor and carrying plasma rifles. They moved in formation, professional and confident. They had done this hundreds of times on hundreds of stations. They expected screaming. They expected surrender. They expected easy prey. They did not expect the fire extinguisher that Min threw at the lead soldier's face. The white cloud of chemicals blinded the first wave. Du charged forward with his metal pipe and swung it with all his strength. The pipe connected with a soldier's helmet. The soldier went down. Guy followed, his makeshift blade catching another soldier in the gap between armor plates. Purple blood sprayed across the corridor. They had not expected resistance. For 3 precious seconds they were confused. Then they recovered. A plasma bolt hit Guy in the shoulder. He screamed but did not fall. Instead, he grabbed the soldier who shot him and pulled him close, driving his blade into the alien's throat. Another bolt flew past Du's head, close enough to feel the heat. He ducked behind the barricade and pulled a wounded soldier's rifle from his hands. He had never fired a plasma rifle before, but he learned quickly. back in the control room, watched the security feeds with wide, disbelieving eyes. He saw the humans fighting. He saw Guy take a plasma burn that should have put him on the ground, then watch him get up and keep fighting. "This is impossible," whispered. "They should be dead. They should be in shock from the pain. Why are they still standing?" Ambassador stood beside him, her fur standing on end. "I do not understand. How do they do this?" Sora heard them. She was preparing medical supplies for the wounded that would soon arrive. "Humans come from she said simply. "Our planet tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Predators, diseases, disasters. We evolved to survive pain. We evolved to keep fighting even when our bodies tell us to stop." Turned to look at her. "I have heard this term, but I never truly understood it." "You understand it now." The battle in the corridor was brutal and short. The humans held for almost 4 minutes, which felt like hours. They killed 7 soldiers before being forced back to the second barricade. Guy was badly wounded, his shoulder a mess of burned flesh. Min had taken a cut across his arm. Du was bleeding from a gash on his forehead. But they were still fighting. Had grabbed a fallen soldier's pistol. Her hands shook as she pointed it at the advancing. She had never shot anyone before. She did not want to shoot anyone now. Then she saw the soldiers stepping over the body of a young technician who had tried to help at the barricade. They had shot him without hesitation. He was barely more than a child by standards. Something cold and hard settled in his chest. She stopped shaking. She fired. The commander on the station called back to Warlord. "Sir, we have encountered unexpected resistance." "Resistance?" His voice was sharp with disbelief. "From a research station." "The humans, they are fighting back." "Then kill them. They are primitive creatures. 5 of them cannot stop a full assault team." "Sir, they have already killed 7 of our soldiers." There was a long silence. 7. 5 humans killed 7 trained warriors. They fight like they do not fear death. One of them took a plasma bolt to the shoulder and kept attacking. They are using improvised weapons and they are not retreating. His eyes narrowed. He had heard stories about humans, about the world they came from, about the things they had done to survive there. He had dismissed those stories as exaggerations. Perhaps he had been wrong. "Send more soldiers," he ordered. "I want that station secured." "Yes, sir." But before more soldiers could be sent, something happened. The sensor officer on his flagship suddenly looked up from his console. His face had gone pale. "Warlord, multiple hyperspace signatures detected." "Conquered reinforcements. They should not be here for days." "Not conquered, sir. The ship's signatures are." The officer checked again as if he could not believe what he was seeing. "Human." 17 ships burst out of hyperspace directly between the fleet and the station. They were not large ships. The biggest was a carrier called the Iron Mountain, and even it was smaller than its flagship. The rest were patrol vessels and light cruisers, built for speed and precision rather than heavy combat. 17 ships against 87. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Iron Mountain and looked at the enemy fleet on his. He had studied war all his life. He knew that what they were about to do was mathematically insane. He did not care. "Open a channel to the flagship," he ordered. "All frequencies." "Channel open, Admiral." Straightened his uniform and spoke clearly. "This is Admiral Park of the Terran Defense Force. You are threatening protected civilians. Withdraw immediately or face destruction." On the flagship, Warlord heard this message and laughed. 17 ships, 17 human ships dare to threaten me." He opened his own channel. "Little Admiral, I have 87 warships. You are outnumbered 5 to 1. Leave now and I will let you go. Stay and you will die." His response was simple: "No." Stopped laughing. "No, that is your answer, no. You have threatened innocent people. You have attacked a peaceful station. You will not leave this system until every one of your ships is destroyed or fleeing. You are insane. Perhaps, but we are also here, and we will not leave. Cut the communication and turn to his officers. Destroy them all. The fleet opened fire. And then the humans showed the galaxy what could do. Human ships moved differently than other species' vessels. They accelerated harder. They turned sharper. They did things that their alien-designed counterparts could not match because human bodies could handle forces that would leave other species unconscious or dead. Lieutenant Bay called out targeting solutions from her station. Focus fire on their engine systems. Disable, do not destroy. We need to keep them from escaping. The human ships dove into the formation like wolves among sheep. They were faster, they were more precise, and they were utterly without fear. They had never fought humans before. They did not know what they were dealing with. On the station, the fighting had stopped. The soldiers heard the alert from their fleet and pulled back to defend their boarding craft. The humans let them go. They were too wounded to pursue. Helped Guy to the control room. Sora immediately went to work on his shoulder, her skilled hands moving quickly despite the chaos. Watched the space battle on the human ships dance through plasma fire, dodging and weaving, striking back with devastating accuracy. One cruiser exploded, then another. They came, said. His voice was filled with wonder. They actually came. Duke collapsed against a wall, finally letting himself rest. Blood dripped from his forehead onto his shirt. I told you, humans always come. Outside, the battle raged on. Human ships took damage. One patrol vessel was hit by concentrated fire and broke apart. Another was disabled and drifted helplessly. But they did not run. Admiral watched his fleet fight and die, and his face showed no emotion. This was the price. This was always the price. But they would pay it, because someone had called for help. And humans always answered. The battle had been raging for 37 minutes. Warlord stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his fleet fall apart around him. This was not possible. This was not how the universe worked. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had crushed species far more advanced than these primitive humans. Yet here he was, watching 17 small ships tear through his fleet like fire through dry grass. How many ships have we lost? He demanded. His tactical officer's voice was hollow. 29 destroyed, sir. 14 more disabled. Our formation has collapsed. 29 ships, almost a third of his fleet, lost to creatures who had only discovered faster-than-light travel 20 years ago. He watched a human cruiser dive directly at a battleship 3 times its size. Instead of pulling away, the human ship flew underneath the battleship's belly, where its weapons could not target, and fired shot after shot into the vulnerable engine section. The battleship listed, its engines dead, helpless. They fight like mad creatures, said quietly. They have no regard for their own survival. Sir, should we retreat? We can still save most of the fleet. His fists clenched. Retreat. The word burned in his mind like poison. He was a warlord of the Dominion. He did not retreat from primitives. But as he watched another of his ships explode, he realized he had no choice. Signal the fleet, he said through gritted teeth. Full withdrawal, maximum speed to the hyperspace corridor. The ships began to turn away, but Admiral Park had been waiting for exactly this moment. They are running, Lieutenant reported. Fleet is moving toward the hyperspace corridor. Nodded slowly. Block their escape route. All ships move to intercept. His first officer looked at him with concern. Admiral, our ships have taken heavy damage. The Steadfast has lost her port engines. The Hammer is running on backup power. If we continue, we will lose more people. I know. His voice was quiet but hard as iron. Do you know what to do to their slaves, Commander? I have read the intelligence reports. I have seen the images. Torture, forced labor until death, children separated from parents and sold to different worlds. He pointed at the retreating fleet. If we let them go, they will do it again. They will attack another station, another colony, another group of innocent people. Today we end this threat. Sir, they are requesting surrender terms. No terms. The first officer blinked, sir. I said no terms. They came to enslave innocent scientists. They murdered a young technician who was barely more than a child. They would have taken 43 people and made their lives into living nightmares. His eyes were like cold stars. Surrender is not enough. The human fleet spread out, cutting off the escape route. The hunters had become the hunted. Warlord watched the human ships move into position and felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear, not for himself but for his entire understanding of the universe. Humans were supposed to be weak, primitive, new to the stars. This was not weakness. He opened a communication channel. Human Admiral, I offer terms. We will leave this sector. We will never return. Let us go and there will be peace between our peoples. His face appeared on his screen. The human looked tired. His uniform was disheveled. There was a cut on his cheek where something had hit him during the battle, but his eyes were steady. Your people invaded a peaceful station, said. You threatened to enslave 43 innocent beings. We recovered data from your disabled ships. I have seen what you do to your slaves. His throat tightened. That is simply our way. It is how the Dominion has always operated. Then the Dominion will change, or the Dominion will die, leaned forward. You wanted to teach these people fear. You wanted them to know that no one would help them, that they were alone in a cruel universe. He paused. You were wrong. They are not alone. They will never be alone. What do you want? Demanded. Justice. The communication ended. The Iron Mountain fired everything it had. Missiles, plasma cannons, kinetic rounds. The barrage hits flagship with devastating force. The great ship shuddered and began to break apart. Had one final thought before the end. We should have left the humans alone. Then fire consumed him. On the station, the crew watched the battle's conclusion on there. They saw the flagship explode. They saw the remaining ships scatter in panic, fleeing in all directions. Some escaped. Most did not. When it was over, 51 ships were destroyed. The rest had fled into deep space, scattered and leaderless, their invasion force shattered. Human losses: 3 ships destroyed, 47 crew members dead. Stared at the screen, unable to speak. 47 humans had died to save his station. 47 people who had never met him, never known his name, had given their lives for him and his colleagues. Why, he finally asked, why would they do this? Du was sitting against the wall, his wounds bandaged by Sora. He looked up with tired eyes. Because you called for help, he said simply. That is all the reason humans need. Shook his head. But the cost: 3 ships, 47 lives, for a station you have no connection to, for species that have treated your kind as inferiors. We do not keep score. Du winced as Sora tightened a bandage. When someone is in danger, we help. When someone calls, we come. That is just what we do. The Marine drop pods had launched during the battle, and now human soldiers moved through the station's corridors. They found the remaining soldiers and captured them without mercy. Any who resisted were killed. Any who surrendered were bound and held for processing. Sergeant Ho led his squad to the main control room. He was a large man, built like a wall, with a quiet voice and calm eyes. His armor was stained with blood, but he moved with careful gentleness as he entered the room full of frightened civilians. Is everyone all right? He asked. Ambassador stepped forward. Her fur was flat against her body now, no longer standing on end with fear. She looked at the human soldier, at the blood on his armor, at the rifle in his hands. You came, she said, her voice trembled. You actually came for us. Ho nodded. Of course we did. But why? The Galactic Concord has no treaty requiring military assistance. You were not obligated to respond. You could have stayed safe in your own space. Ho looked at her as if she had asked a strange question. You sent a distress signal. You asked for help. We came. But the risk. Ma'am, Ho's voice was gentle but firm. 43 people were going to be enslaved or killed. 5 of them were human. The rest were our fellow beings. What kind of people would we be if we did not answer that call? Had no response. In her entire life, she had never met a species like this. Her people avoided conflict. They negotiated. They compromised. They never risked their lives for strangers. Corporal Im entered the room behind Ho. She was the combat medic, small and quick, with dark eyes and steady hands. She saw Guy sitting against the wall with his ruined shoulder and immediately went to him. That looks bad, she said, examining the wound. It feels worse, Guy admitted. Can you walk? I can try. Smiled grimly. Typical gets shot and wants to walk it off. She helped him to his feet. Let us get you to the medical bay. The real one, not whatever field station your doctor set up here. Sora watched them go. Take care of him, she called. Nodded, we take care of our own, all of our own. Outside, the human fleet took up protective positions around the station. The ships that could still fly formed a defensive perimeter. The damaged ones moved into repair positions. They were battered. They were bleeding, but they were still there. Admiral looked at the damage reports with a heavy heart. 3 ships lost, 47 dead, many more wounded. The cost had been high. But on the station below, 43 people were alive and free. 5 of them were human. The rest were aliens who had called for help and been answered. It was enough. It had to be enough. He opened a channel to the station. Research Station, this is Admiral Park of the Terran Defense Force. The enemy fleet has been neutralized. You are safe now. Answered the call. Her voice was rough with emotion. Admiral, we do not know how to thank you. You saved all of us. That is what we do. Allowed himself a small smile. Now get your wounded treated and your station secured. We will remain on patrol until a conquered relief fleet arrives. How long will you stay? As long as it takes. The channel closed. Turned to look at her colleagues, at the aliens who had worked beside her for years, at the humans who had fought beside her today. They were all still alive. Against all odds, they were all still alive. And somewhere out there in the darkness, the message was already spreading. The Dominion had attacked a station. Humans had answered, and the had learned why should never be threatened. 1 week had passed since the battle. The research station was slowly healing. Human engineers worked alongside technicians to repair the damaged sections. The holes in the hull had been patched. The broken equipment had been replaced. The blood in the corridors had been cleaned away. But some wounds took longer to heal than others. Dew stood at a viewport looking out at the stars. His arm was in a sling. The cut on his forehead had closed, leaving a thin scar that would fade with time. He should have been resting. The doctors had told him to rest, but Dew had never been good at sitting still. Approached him quietly. The scientist had changed in the past week. He stood a little taller. His eyes were a little steadier. Something had shifted inside him during the battle, and he was still trying to understand what. May I join you? Asked. Dew nodded. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the human ships patrol outside. The fleet had stayed, just as Admiral had promised. They would remain until the Galactic Conquered Relief Force arrived in 2 more days. I need to tell you something, said finally. What? Before all this happened, I looked down on humans. I thought your species was primitive, dangerous perhaps, but in a stupid way, like animals. His voice was heavy with shame. I was wrong. I was terribly wrong. Dew shrugged with his good shoulder. Many species think that way about us. We are used to it. That does not make it right. Turned to face him. I watched you fight. I watched you take wounds that should have dropped you, and you kept going. I watched your people fly 17 ships against 87, knowing they would probably die, and they never hesitated. We were protecting our own. But we were not your own, not really. We are aliens, strangers. Some of us treated you badly. Du was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. You called for help, that made you ours. Did not understand. He wondered if he ever would. 2 days later, the Galactic Concord held an emergency council session. Representatives from all 12 member species gathered in the Great Chamber on the Concord. The topic of discussion: the human response to the station attack. High Counselor sat at the center of the chamber. He was ancient, his species lived for centuries, and he had seen many things in his long life. But he had never seen anything quite like this. The chamber was filled with murmurs and whispers. Some representatives looked grateful, others looked terrified. They had all watched the battle footage. They had all seen what the humans had done. Order, said, his voice slow and deliberate. We will have order. The chamber fell silent. We are here to discuss the incident at the research station, continued. As you all know, a Dominion fleet attacked the station and threatened to enslave its crew. The human Terran Defense Force responded to the distress call and engaged the fleet. He paused. 17 human ships against 87 vessels. The humans lost 3 ships and 47 crew members. The lost 51 ships, including their flagship and commander. The remaining forces have scattered and are no longer a threat to this sector. More whispers, more murmurs. Admiral Park has been invited to address this council, said. Admiral, please come forward. Walked to the center of the chamber. He wore his dress uniform, clean and pressed, with medals on his chest. He stood straight and calm, showing no sign of nervousness. The representatives watched him with mixed emotions, some with gratitude, some with fear, some with both. Spoke first. Admiral Park, on behalf of the Galactic Concord, I wish to express our gratitude for your intervention at the station. You saved 43 lives. Thank you, High Counselor. However, I must ask you a question that many in this chamber wish answered. Leaned forward. Why did you do it? Raised an eyebrow. I am not sure I understand the question. Your fleet was vastly outnumbered. You had no treaty obligation to respond. The station is not human property. 5 of the 43 crew members were human, but the rest were not. Spread his hands. By any rational calculation, the risk far outweighed the benefit. Why did you come? The chamber was silent. Everyone wanted to hear the answer. Stood quietly for a moment, gathering his thoughts. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear. High Counselor, my species spent thousands of years fighting ourselves. Wars, famines, plagues. We nearly destroyed ourselves more times than I can count. Our own planet tried to kill us. Our own history tried to kill us. He paused, but we survived. Do you know why? Because when it truly mattered, when everything was at stake, humans protected each other. Strangers helped strangers. People risked their lives for people they had never met. That is who we are. It is not a calculation. It is not a treaty. It is not politics. It is simply what humans do. When someone calls for help, we answer. When someone is in danger, we come. We do not ask if they are human or alien. We do not ask if they deserve it. We do not count the cost beforehand. Looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative. The thought they could threaten innocent people because no one would stop them. They were wrong. As long as humans are part of this galaxy, anyone who threatens the helpless will have to face us. That is why we came. That is why we will always come. The chamber was silent. Then Ambassador stood up. Her forearms were steady, her fur smooth. She was not the same frightened diplomat who had begged for mercy. High Counselor, she said, I was there. I saw what happened. I was ready to surrender myself to slavery because I believed no one would help us. The humans proved me wrong. She turned to look at the other representatives. I move that humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Concord, not as junior members, not as observers, as equals." Whispers erupted across the chamber. Some representatives nodded, others looked uncertain. High Counselor raised his hand for silence. "This is a significant proposal. Full membership requires a unanimous vote." "Then let us vote," said firmly. One by one, the representatives cast their votes. Some voted immediately. Others hesitated before raising their hands. But in the end, the result was clear. Unanimous approval. Humanity was now a full member of the Galactic Concord. News of the vote reached the station within hours. Received the message and read it twice to make sure she understood. "We did it," she said softly. "We actually did it." She found Doohan the engineering section, helping repair a power conduit with his one good arm. She told him the news. He nodded slowly. "Good, maybe now they will take us seriously." "Is that not what you wanted?" "What I wanted was to save those people." He set down his tools and looked at her. "Everything else is just extra." On the Iron Mountain, Admiral received a different message. A private note from High Counselor. Admiral Park, the message read, "I have lived for 300 years. I have seen many species come and go. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have never met a species quite like yours. Some in the Conquered fear you. They have seen how you fight and they are afraid of what you might do. I understand their fear, but I also understand something else. The galaxy is a dangerous place. There are threats out there that we have not yet faced. When those threats come, I want humans standing with us. You are terrifying, but you are also exactly what we need. Welcome to the Conquered." Read the message, then deleted it. He did not need praise. He did not need validation. He had done what needed to be done. 47 of his people had died. 3 ships had been lost. That was the price of doing what was right. It was a price humans had always been willing to pay. Back on the station, Guy stood at a viewport beside Du. His shoulder was healing slowly. He would carry scars for the rest of his life. "Do you think there will be more fights like this?" Guy asked. Du nodded slowly. "The galaxy is big. Lots of people will need help." Guy grinned despite his pain. "Good thing they have us." They stood in silence, watching the stars. And across the galaxy a message began to spread. Quietly at first, then louder, among the oppressed, the frightened, the abandoned. "When you have no one else, call the. They will come.